Hi, my name is Annelle Sheline. I am a research fellow for the Middle East at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft and an advisor for Gulf State Analytics. Today I'll be talking about the implications of the Biden administration's recent decisions vis-a-vis Yemen and what that will mean for the conflict moving forward. The Biden administration should be commended for acting quickly on Yemen, where the world's largest humanitarian catastrophe is unfolding. The Biden team is trying to correct the Obama administration's decision to support the Saudi-led coalition's military intervention in Yemen in 2015. At the time, many of the same individuals were involved in the impending Iran deal, or JCPOA, and hoped that by supporting the Saudi-led coalition, the Gulf states would soften their likely critiques of the deal. Yet given the humanitarian fallout of that decision, many of these people now realize they made the wrong call. Unfortunately, Biden's actions are not likely to help resolve the conflict in Yemen. To do that, Biden needs to work with international partners in the Gulf and in the EU to require the cessation of all foreign support to the warring parties in Yemen. Only once the foreign resources stop pouring in will the local actors have the incentive to stop fighting and work out a political solution. On the implications of Biden's decision to end U.S. support for offensive Saudi military action, as well as the decision to lift the foreign terrorist organization designation of the Houthis, there's been discussion that Biden withdrawing U.S. support or that Biden lifting the designation has lost a key point of leverage. And this is the wrong way to look at it, because this is essentially exhibiting a willingness to bargain with Yemeni lives, that under the FTO designation, more Yemenis were dying. And now that it's been lifted, U.S. or various aid organizations are going to have a increased ability to get back into Yemen and to be able to interact with the Houthis, which control the territory where the majority, about 70 to 80% of Yemenis live. Therefore, it's imperative from a humanitarian perspective and from a moral perspective that the designation be lifted, despite the fact that there have been concerns going forward that the Ansar Allah or the Houthis are now going to see themselves as being able to act with greater impunity. And we did subsequently see that the Houthis resumed their offensive on Ma'rib, which is a crucial city east of Sana'a, the location of one of the sort of gas facilities for Yemen, one of the few parts of Yemen that is still somewhat economically productive. And therefore, if the Houthis were to control it, this would further consolidate their power of the territory, of another large portion of the population, as well as access to resources. So again, the lifting of the designation is not resolving the war, but I think was crucial in terms of needing to do something to address the looming famine in Yemen. So moving forward, it is important to keep in mind that Biden's announcement was fairly qualified. So he mentioned that the U.S. is going to cease support for Saudi offensive military actions against Yemen. However, from Saudi's perspective, much of what they've done has been defensive, that they intervened in response to what they saw as Iranian intervention in Yemen, which they wished to stop. They wanted to prevent Iran from expanding into what they see as their backyard. That calculus was flawed, clearly as a result of the past 6 years of war. The Houthis have merely grown more powerful. They've taken more territory, and Iran's sort of involvement in the conflict has increased significantly. When Saudi Arabia intervened, the Iranians were not particularly involved, and they've only enhanced their support for the Houthis since then. So it's clear that the military approach was not working in Yemen, and so I do think it's important to commend the Biden administration for trying to shift the calculus and to adopt a new approach moving forward. But again, Biden has very clearly signaled that the U.S. is still interested still committed to helping to support the Saudis, to supporting Saudi efforts to protect Saudi territory from Houthi missiles, which have continued to fall, or to be deflected by anti-missile technologies that the Saudis possess, and some of which are operated jointly with American forces. Another key point that Biden had made was that he was going to suspend the sale of relevant weapons to Saudi Arabia as well as to the UAE. This is an improvement over the Trump administration's willingness to make some of sort of unprecedentedly huge arms sales to Saudi Arabia and the UAE. So this is an improvement, but again, it's unclear what exactly it's going to mean in practice. So moving forward, neither the Saudis nor the Emiratis are going to be likely to be willing to withdraw support until Iran commits to do the same. And for that reason, it is crucial that the US return to the JCPOA or in some way restart negotiations with Iran, whatever form that ends up taking, so that the US can have a working relationship with Iran and can begin to negotiate things like Iran ending its support for the Houthis. So I think the most crucial takeaway is ending US support for the Saudi-led coalition is not going to change much on the ground, although it is a very important first step and an important signal to the US security partners, specifically Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Another important step will be pressure from the US, from the EU perhaps, telling the Saudis and Emiratis that they have to withdraw all support for warring factions on the ground and they need to withdraw militarily. And that similarly Iran has to do the same thing, and that none of this will happen. It's going to be difficult for Saudi Arabia and the UAE to move forward until they see Iran making similar moves. So all of this goes back to the importance of Biden rejoining the JCPOA, which he should do without preconditions. The US withdrew unilaterally. The other members of the deal are still involved, are still participants in the agreement. Therefore, the US should simply rejoin and from there move forward on addressing the very real concerns of Gulf partners on Iran's other actions that destabilize the region. But given the dire situation in Yemen, I think the sort of time for political maneuver is not now. It's important to address the humanitarian catastrophe and to start to move towards a position where those kinds of negotiations can be conducted more effectively, and that moving forward to actually resolve the war in Yemen, it's going to be an internal Yemeni discussion. It would need to be inclusive of all the relevant stakeholders, and that's something that can't even begin to happen until the US and other countries push to end any sort of foreign support for these various warring factions.
Thanks so much for watching this video. Please be sure to stay tuned for the next GeoTalk video and stay updated by following Gulf State Analytics on social media. Bye for now.